So he said he called me a provocateur, so I guess I have to live up to that, huh? We'll see. It's great to see everybody. I am just inspired by the fellows, and I just cannot believe how much has been done in such a short period of time. $1 billion, 60 plus graduates of the Fellows Program, and we're proud to be one of the contributors to that. So give yourselves a hand before I get started. And excuse my voice a little bit, but I'm gonna power over it. I've got a little something going on, but it'll be okay. I'm really feel privileged, honored to be here, and I have a message on a few things, and then I hope that we'll have a little bit of time. I've asked for if I could open it up for some questions. Today I'm primarily representing the Nathan Cummings Foundation, and if you aren't familiar with us, we were the first foundation of our size to go 100% impact. And so we didn't do a carve out, we said the whole thing. And what I want to talk to you about a little bit is about the journey that it takes to do that. And an experience I had very early on in this role as CEO when we said we're going 100% impact. So I came in as a CEO, I went to a conference, I think it was in Puerto Rico, and a lot of people who look like me started coming up because suddenly you realize, oh, I'm popular now because I have money. So they started coming up and wanting to figure out, how do I get in? How do I get in? And what came to mind was something that has stayed with me, but it was impromptu. And what I said was that, remember, and this was partly a strategy to keep people back, was that it takes 4 yeses to get this done. And so I said, so getting the CEO to say yes is only one step. But I said, remember, I still report into trustees, so I need the trustees. And then remember, whether the professional staff is in-house or it's an outside chief investment officer, I need them to say yes. And then they report in to an investment committee and they need to say yes. So I never want you to forget the importance of the 4 yeses, because that's what's required to move a lot of the money, particularly in the endowment space. It's not just speaking to one individual, it's an ecosystem. So if it takes a little bit of time, understand that we're trying to maneuver for all of those, and we're trying to create change. And so that was the first experience. The second experience was to remember that it truly is a journey for what all of you are doing. It's not just, I've got a great idea, but I want to say something very common about that journey. And I have a colleague here, Henderson Shorter. Henderson, wave your hand. So Henderson works with us, so if you want money, go to Henderson. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted Henderson to raise his hand. But the other was, he was in the audience when I was giving remarks about something that was very near and dear to me. And the theme of that talk was, everybody in this world needs someone to say yes. And so what we've got to not think of any of the things that we're doing is that there's a Superman or a Superwoman, and there's no one who is self-made. And if they say that they're self-made, they're either lying or they're delusional, because they're not self-made and they're looking for the yes. And along the way in your journey, and I can tell you in mine, that's all you ever look for. And so sometimes it means you're gonna have to pitch multiple times looking for the yes. But you know what happens over time? The table changes. And so you might go from being the person seeking the yes, but never forget that when someone is coming up to you because they need a yes from you. And so that's going to play out in your career. And I've been a person that has had that happen. And I started off many years ago. And in fact, you know, people think that impact investing is new. It's actually not new. It just is a new name to something that's been around for a long time, because the word purpose has been around for a long time. And so it's always about doing things with purpose. And for me, it got started when I was a lawyer, but it certainly, I wasn't doing impact work as a lawyer. But when I went into government and I took over running housing for the state of Oregon, and the issue with that was, this was years ago, and it was Oregon. And when I was in that job, I remember asking, are there any black people? anywhere around. And people looked at me like, well, there's a family in this county and there's a family in that county. But what we were trying to do was change the mind of the legislature. And the legislature had never put any general fund money into affordable housing at that point ever. And I was trying to get them to do what? Say yes. And it took meeting after meeting. And you know what the game changer was? When I brought together the real estate community and I brought together the investment community from banking. And we showed up together with the Republicans in the State House and convinced them to do a bill. They got the governor behind it, and that changed everything. And that was my yes, and that got me going. So I want to say a few things about impact investing and the headwinds and the tailwinds, and some things that we have to be careful about and that we have to be honest about. I was asked by a reporter with everything that's going on, and I happen to live in Washington, so you can fill in the rest, and they said, well, how are you responding to what's going on? And my answer was very simple. I don't believe in spending my time being in response to any particular thing that's going on, so I don't respond. I said, but the way you have to think of this is 3 lanes. You've got one group of people that are spending most of their time saying we need to reduce. You have another group of people that says we want to restore. And I said, I'm in the third group, and it happens to be an R, and I said, I want to reform. And this is our grand opportunity to not just say double down on everything where we've had decades of things not working that well. And so we can't just assume, and it's a danger. I consider it a headwind to stand up and say, well, all of this is working, and if you just write a bigger check, it'll all continue to work. That's not true. And so we can't be a sector that adopts that mentality. And one of the reasons why people are interested in impact investing is it represents the possibility of doing something very different. And that possibility lies in what I call the pragmatic case for impact. And the pragmatic case is built upon a few key principles. One, clarity of intent and clarity of expectation. And if you're approaching anybody as an industry or as an individual, you have to be clear about what your intent is, and you need to be clear about the expectation. And the expectation needs to be measured. It needs to be something that is real and measurable. But the other elements of the pragmatic case for impact lie in the issue of returns and saying we can do quality returns. But probably the most important part, it lies in the issue of innovation. And what the investors are seeking is this innovative, leading toward a solution? And we can't lose that part. And the danger that I see is with more people entering the space, that we lose the discipline. We fall prey to people who over-politicize this industry. We don't want to have what has happened to ESG and other movements to happen to impact, because it is pragmatic. It doesn't matter whether it is red or blue. We need to think about the green of it and make money and do well at the same time. And it doesn't belong in that basket. And we have a unique opportunity to continue to grow this. In fact, with the government leaving certain sectors, it creates opportunity. We don't have to look at it as all from a woe is me, because there are people who want to solve problems, and they're going to be looking to you for the engineering, the financial engineering that is going to get us there. So I urge that we remember that it's about a pragmatic case and not just an ideological case, because we can get bigger numbers. Now, there's a group that you're going to hear from. I don't think they're here today. Anyone here from Bibby and West Fuller? You're going to hear from Ian later today, and the story of Bibby and West Fuller grows out of this same thesis of saying yes to someone. We've all heard this, what's described as the 2% problem. It might be 2.5%. That of all the money that's managed, if you added up all the women, you added up all the people of color, it would basically be 2%. The numbers speak for themselves. But yet, to be quite candid, when I would sit with my brothers and sisters in philanthropy, and this is intended to be provocative, and I would ask, who manages your money? Nobody who looked like me would manage any of that money. And so these are the gatekeepers of the gatekeepers. And so we made a change in our foundation, not because it was the color of the skin, but it was because it was a selection of the best group. And they came to us and said yes, and they pitched us to manage our money. And when they came in, their AUM is not what you would have expected to manage our money. And see, I already knew that there were two things that keep people back. It's sort of a tautology. The first is when you're doing an RFP, people will say, how much AUM do you have? And if you don't reach a threshold, you never get interviewed. The second is a capacity question. Will we allow a newly created entity to apply for this RFP? And usually the answer is no. So I created a process and I said, I want this to be objective. I won't serve on the selection committee in the beginning. And I set that out, but I retained one important right. And I said, when there are macro level issues, I'll be the decider. And so like clockwork, and we had 60 applications, firms all over the world to manage our money, especially since we were gonna go 100% impact. So we had a lot of people who wanted to manage our funds. The very first question came up and said, well, we wanna set the cutoff for the AUM at 5 billion. And my answer was no. And they were like, well, why? Thank you. And they said, well, why is that? And I said, because I want to expand my sight lines. I want to see what's there. And they said, well, it's going to cost more money to do the review. And this was a great position to be in. And I said, I have the money. So then we went through the review. And then the next question came up, which was inevitable. Oh, we have several groups who are newly formed. We want to not allow that. And I gave the exact same answer. I want to expand my sight lines. I want to see who's available. I did not know this group ahead of time. And then I found out when I re-entered the process, when it was down to the final 8, that there were 2 firms, one a woman organized and owned firm, and another one, 2 black organizations that had come together for the RFP. And they fought their way to the finals, and they were a unanimous selection of our investment committee. And when we started just 3.5 years ago, the AUM was 1.7 billion, and just a short period of time later, it's 7.8 billion. That is impact. And that's what we have to focus on. But when you are in that room, where you go from the person who is seeking the capital to the person who has a position of power, because let's talk about the importance of power, it's what do you do with it? Do you just squat on it and say, I've got mine, or will you put it to work? And so at the end of the day, for all of us, we have to make choices in our lives and in our careers. And you will be bombarded with distractions and distortions for those choices that you have to make. And the issue is, what will guide you? What will guide you in those moments of temptation to say, I've got mine and I can be popular, or I can go with this group and they're gonna treat me better? Will you lift another person? Because this sector will not grow unless we remember the importance and the power of saying yes. And all of you who are successfully moving forward will be in that position. Who are your vendors? Who are the professional firms that you work with? Will you extend that yes to other people? The impact sector is not just about getting mine and moving forward. It is about fundamental change, positive change, and solving problems globally. We are in a position to do that, to aggregate the best thinkers in finance and marry them up with the best thinkers in terms of operations and be able to do something extraordinarily important. And so I ask you to remember, when you are presented with false choices that will be tempting, on the one hand, to go in one direction, sometimes you have to decide the right direction is not A, it's not B, but I have to create C, which is what impact investing is all about, the creation of what might not be presently seen, but we are counting on you to put that in place. And so I'm gonna, because they're showing me that my time is, because I could go on for a long period of time, and I'd love to give you a few shots if you've got questions, because I'm trying to cover a wide variety of issues. I'm gonna close with this, is every one of us has an aspiration. That aspiration stays inside of you. A lot of times in life, you'll have that aspiration and you'll have a lot of people say no. And they'll find a way to say no. And this is what happens with low-income people. They have a lot of different things that bombard them. When they're walking down the street, when people divert their eyes, when they don't have the political power to get listened to. You have a choice to look at that person, and sometimes your inflection in your voice, the expression on your face, as well as the verbalization, will be the determination of whether or not their aspiration can be fulfilled in much the same way yours can. So bless you on your journey. Remember, go after Henderson Shorter if you want some of our money. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you. This isn't working. Thank you, Ray. I just want to, and I know I'm using my power, to give 2 questions because you asked for that and you've been so gracious with your time. If there are 2 questions that we want to quickly ask, Ray, let's do it. Let's just, innovate here and now.
And I have a member of my investment committee here, Erica Seth Davey. Erica,
oh, yeah.
Raise your hand. Great. I'm
also
proud to have her.
Board member.
And a board member. Come on.
I mean, okay.
Here we go.
Please.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you for that. Thank you for that question. I think supporting people like this great woman here is one of the ways you'll get there. So we're scheming on something big, so hopefully that'll be something that she talks a little bit about later. I'm 100% behind VC Include, but I think it's about using our power, which is what I was saying earlier, because we are in position of power and we have to speak up, right? And so when I'm there with my colleagues in the industry, I try to put it toward them. I was in the room once with Darren over at Ford, and there were just CEOs, because we'll have these CEO meetings. They're not riveting, but we will have these CEO meetings talking about impact. And he said to us, and I love this, Darren Walker at Ford, and he said, I want you all to mention something about impact that wasn't written by your staff. And so everybody then kind of got nervous. I spoke first, and I simply said that our trustees allow people who look like me to manage our money. And they're hitting all the returns, and they're doing a great job. That's impact. And the formation, there's one manager in there in particular, he's not here today, his name is Mamadou from V Squared. And when this young gentleman, and he's from France and of African heritage, and he was placed in front of me, he had tried to get endowments, and the exact number of endowments to support his enterprise was 0. We said yes, and today, just a few years after that, his fund manages over $1 billion, and he has 17 endowments. So you've got to signal the market with the yes. Yes, thank you guys.